Hi folks, thanks for stopping by. Welcome to episode 8 of I Like Big Boats and I Cannot Lie, the weekly series where I discuss my favorite thing, submarines. I hope you're doing well, and I hope this video can provide some good old-fashioned ASMR relaxation. This week begins November 2nd and runs until November 8th. There's lots to discuss, but first I must warn you that if you hear any rustling, purring, kneading, etc., my dear beloved child has decided she wants to be present for my recording, so just enjoy it as a little extra background noise. With that being said, let's dive right in. We start on the 2nd of November in 1963 at Electric Boat in Groton, Connecticut, where the USS Ulysses S. Grant, SSBN 631, was launched. Her sponsor was the great-granddaughter of President Grant, Edith Grant Griffiths, wife of Colonel David W. Griffiths. Ulysses S. Grant, third of her name, was a James Madison-class ballistic missile submarine that operated from her commissioning in 1964 until her decommissioning in 1992. In 1985, the USS Oklahoma City, SSN 723, was launched, sponsored by Mrs. Linda M. Nichols. The contract to build her had been awarded to Newport News Shipping and Dry Dock Company in Virginia on the 13th of August, 1981. Oklahoma City was a Los Angeles or 688 class nuclear fast attack submarine homeported at Norfolk in Virginia. Her motto was, "The sooner, the better." Next up, the USS Honolulu, SSN 718, another LA-class sub, decommissioned on this day in 2007. Honolulu put to sea in early May of 2006 for a final patrol and ended up at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard in Bremerton, Washington for her decommissioning ceremony. She entered the ship and submarine recycling program at the shipyard, where her forward section was cut off and stuck to the front of the USS San Francisco after its fatal collision in January of 2008. Her motto was the Hawaiian term for always on alert. I have decided, rather than butcher beautiful languages, I should probably just say them in English where I can, so it's for the better. I'm very bad at pronouncing things, so always on alert. In 2013, the USS North Dakota, SSN 784, was christened by her sponsor, Katie Fowler, wife of Vice Admiral Jeff Fowler. North Dakota had been laid down by General Dynamics Electric Boat in Groton in 2003. She is a Block 3 Virginia-class sub. For those of you who don't know, there are 6 blocks of Virginia submarines now, each with their own unique changes to the design. Block 3 boats like North Dakota have redesigned about 40% of their bow and utilize a large aperture bow sonar array, which replaces the spherical sonar array used on all U.S. Navy SSNs since 1960. The Block 3s also featured 2 vertical launch system tubes containing 6 missiles apiece, technology borrowed from Ohio-class guided missile submarines. I like North Dakota's motto, strength from the soil, reapers of the deep. Might be my favorite motto so far. On November 3rd, 1905, the USS Plunger, SS2, was decommissioned after only 3 years of service. She was the lead boat in her class, later redesigned A1 and referred to as an A-type submarine. Their diving depth was only 150 feet, but that's pretty deep for 1905. The subs were powered by a 180 brake horsepower gas engine on the surface and a 70 horsepower electric motor while submerged, for a whopping 8 and 7 knots respectively. Ship's complement was 1 officer and 6 enlisted, crammed into 63 feet and 10 inches of space. Holy claustrophobia. In 1922, the USS H-9, SS-152, was decommissioned at Norfolk, Virginia. She was struck from the Naval Vessel Register on the 26th of February, 1931, and sold for scrap on the 28th of November in 1933. H-class subs were originally built by the British Pacific Construction and Engineering Company of Vancouver, Canada, and were laid at Puget Sound Navy Yard, today known as Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. These vessels were intended for the Imperial Russian Navy, which kind of just failed to exist, so the U.S. Navy purchased them instead. Better not to waste good steel, I suppose. 1967 brings the commissioning of the USS Greenling, SSN 614. Greenling was one of 3 Thresher Permit-class subs to be selected for conversion to the improved Thresher class in the wake of USS Thresher's sinking in 1963. After her launching on the 4th of April, 1964, she was towed to Quincy, Massachusetts, where she began modifications, which included subsafe upgrades, an additional 13 feet, 9 inches of hull length, which improved living and working conditions for the crew, as well as space for additional equipment. Her home port was Groton, Connecticut, and her motto was, "Steel true and blade straight." Though she has since been decommissioned, equipment from her control room was salvaged and used to create a simulated control room for an exhibit at the Naval Undersea Museum in Keyport, Washington. Moving on to November 4th, 1940, and the keel laying of USS Silversides, SS-236, at Mare Island Naval Shipyard. Silversides, first of her name, was a Gato-class diesel-electric submarine, considered one of the most successful submarines in the Pacific theater during World War II, with 23 confirmed sinkings in 14 war patrols. 1 year later, the USS R3 SS-80 was decommissioned. Launched in 1919 in Boston, R3 served as a coastal and harbor defense vessel. R3 was actually decommissioned twice, the first being on the 10th of August 1934, before being recommissioned 6 years later. After her second decom, she was struck from the Naval Vessel Register and given to the British to serve as HMS P-511, a training submarine. After being returned to the United States, she was deemed unfit for service and scrapped in Scotland in 1948. In 1943, an electric boat in Groton, the USS Bumper, SS-333, was laid down. Bumper was a Baleo class, named for a northern and southern Atlantic Ocean fish. Bumper served in 2 war patrols during her career. On November 5th, we move back to 1918 with the commissioning of USS 01, Submarine 62, lead ship of her class. 01 operated on the East Coast from Cape Cod, Massachusetts to Key West, Florida in the years after World War I. In December of 1930, 01 was converted to an experimental vessel operating out of the submarine base in New London, Connecticut, until her decommissioning. The USS Cutlass, SS-478, was launched on this date in 1944 from the Portsmouth Navy Yard, where she had been laid down on the 10th of July, 1944. Her sponsor was Mrs. R.E. Kintner, who might have been the wife of the television executive Robert E. Kintner, which would mean her name was Jean Elaine Rodney. I did a little research and couldn't find a different R.E. Kintner, nor an actual name for the sponsor. This is unfortunately as close as I could get, so deeply sorry for that. Cutlass is a Tench-class submarine and is still somehow in service 82 years after her launching, operating with the Taiwanese Navy. In 1983, we moved to the USS Buffalo, SSN 715, a Los Angeles-class submarine built by Newport News Shipbuilding and Drydock Company. At the time of her commissioning, Buffalo was commanded by Commander G. Michael Hewitt. Her nickname was Silent Thunder, but I couldn't find a motto. In 1990, the USS Henry Clay, SSBN 625, a Lafayette-class ballistic missile submarine, was decommissioned and struck from the Naval Vessel Register. She entered the ship and submarine recycling program at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, and her scrapping was completed on the 30th of September, 1997. Her motto was Preservation of the Nation. Lafayette-class subs were an improvement on their predecessor, the Ethan Allen. 9 of them were built in a 3-year span. The first 8 were initially deployed with the Polaris A-2 missile, then upgraded to carry the Poseidon C-3 sometime in the 1970s. Lafayette boats were equipped with a hovering system to manage their trim more effectively, increasing the missile fire rate from 1 to 4 per minute. Of all 9, only 1 remains. USS Daniel Webster was converted to a moored training ship and stationed at the Nuclear Power Training Unit in Charleston, South Carolina. On November 6, 1943, The Baleo class, USS Pampanito, SS-383, was commissioned. Built by Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, Pampanito served in 6 war patrols and earned 6 battle stars. Nowadays, she sits as a national landmark and museum ship in the San Francisco Maritime National Park, located at Fisherman's Wharf. Baleo subs were diesel-electric vessels used during World War II. There were a staggering 120 of these boats completed. Of their most significant improvements on their predecessor, the Gatto, was the thicker, high-yield steel in the pressure hull and frame, which increased their test depth to 400 feet. By contrast, the Gatto class's test depth was 300 feet. In 1944, SS-420, blaze it, the USS Taranti was commissioned, with Lieutenant Commander George L. Street III in command. Taranti was a Tench-class sub built by Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. Taranti's executive officer on her first war patrol was the author Edward Beach, who based his first novel, Run Silent, Run Deep, on his own wartime experiences. The USS Hampton, SSN 767, was commissioned on this day in 1993, with Commander David Antonitis in command. Hampton is named for 4 cities in Iowa, Virginia, South Carolina, and New Hampshire. There are an absurd amount of communities named Hampton in the United States, apparently. Hampton, 4th of her name, was homeported at Naval Base Point Loma in San Diego, California. Her motto was Latin for "Those who desire peace, prepare for war." On the 7th of November, 1944, we have the keel laying of the Tench-class USS Sea Leopard, SS-483, at the Portsmouth Navy Yard. Sea Leopard served nearly 30 years before being transferred to the Brazilian Navy. In 1969, the USS Blenny, SS-324, was decommissioned. She was laid up at the Atlantic Reserve Fleet, berthed in Philadelphia. Her name was struck from the Naval Vessel Register on the 15th of August, 1973, donated to the state of Maryland in 1984, and then she was scuttled in June of 1989 to form part of an artificial reef about 15 miles off Ocean City. I think that's a fabulous use of a boat, sent to rest on the seafloor to help facilitate life. What a peaceful and lovely end. Next we have USS Boise, SSN 764, commissioned in 1992. Boise is a Los Angeles-class sub built by Newport News and is currently in sort of active service. She's been in dry dock in Norfolk since 2021, and her maintenance is expected to be completed in 2029. That is an absurd amount of time. According to Wikipedia, the reason is a 10-year lapse in capabilities and logistical setbacks during the retrofitting of USS Helena and Columbus. I don't know what that means. Boise's motto is a bit weak, in my opinion. It's a one-ship fleet. Maybe while she's in dry dock, she can think of a new motto. In 1997, the USS Groton, SSN 694, was decommissioned and struck from the Naval Vessel Register. She's another Los Angeles-class sub, the 7th overall, the 3rd ship of the Navy to be named for the city in Connecticut. Groton entered the Ship and Submarine Recycling Program at PSNS in October of 2011. Submarine recycle only takes place at PSNS, though the preparations can be made elsewhere. Before recycling, the defueling process must take place, where the boat is stripped of its useful bits and its fuel. The fuel is shipped off to the Naval Reactor Facility in the Ohio National Laboratory. The reactor compartments are then removed, sealed at both ends, and shipped to the Hanford Nuclear Reservation, where they're laid out in a big ditch, which eventually will be buried. Last day of the week, November 8th, and we start in 1900 with the USS Moccasin, or A4, SS-5, one of 7 plunger-class submarines. She was laid at the Crescent Shipyard in Elizabethport, New Jersey, by Lewis Nixon, a subcontractor for the Holland Torpedo Boat Company. Next is the USS Louisville, SSN 724, yet another Los Angeles sub. It's almost like they made like 62 of them. Commissioned on this date in 1986. Louisville had been built by Electric Boat in Groton. At the time of her commissioning, Captain Charles E. Ellis assumed command. Louisville was homeported at Naval Base Point Loma, but transferred to Naval Station Bremen in 2019 until her decommissioning in 2021. Her motto was, "Best of the breed." Lastly is the USS Queenfish, SSN 651, a Sturgeon-class sub built by Newport News Shipbuilding and Dry Dock Company. She was decommissioned on the 8th of November, 1991, and stricken from the Naval Vessel Register in 1992. After decommissioning, she entered the Ship and Submarine Recycling Program in 1992. Her escape trunk was removed and used for the U.S. Army Special Forces Underwater Operations School in Key West, Florida. And with that, that is all I have for this week. I hope you enjoyed, folks, and I hope you have a great day. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Baby says bye too.